U.S. President Joe Biden on Monday said he is willing to meet with Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson to discuss a funding bill for Ukraine.
Sure, I'd be happy to. He has anything to say.
Speaking to reporters as he returned to the White House from a weekend in Delaware, Biden added that Republicans are making a big mistake by opposing aid to Ukraine for use in its war to repel Russian invaders.
The bill, as amended, passes.
Earlier this month, the U.S. Senate passed a $95 billion aid package in a bipartisan vote. It includes funds for Ukraine, but Johnson so far has declined even to bring it up for a vote on the floor of the House, which Republicans control by a narrow margin. Meanwhile, Johnson has been demanding a meeting with Biden.
The idea that we're going to let NATO begin to split is totally against the interests of the United States.
Biden has been sharply critical of his likely election rival Donald Trump and other Republicans for threatening to not defend NATO allies. He blamed the death of Alexei Navalny on Russian President Vladimir Putin last week. Biden said he hoped the death of the Russian opposition leader would spur Republicans to support the aid for Ukraine. Congress is not due back in Washington until February 28th.
Facing failures, massive failures in the battlefield, namely the recent loss of a strategic town of Avdiivka, the Kiev regime is trying to make up by intensifying its terrorist attacks against civilians. Less than 2 weeks ago, we convened a meeting of the UN Security Council to discuss an attack on a bakery in the city of Lysychansk. This was an act of terrorism committed by the Ukrainian armed forces as they deliberately attacked civilian infrastructure, one of many in the last couple of months. On February 15th, they launched another massive attack on peaceful areas of Belgorod. The strike makes no sense from the military point of view. The military infrastructure was not located in the immediate vicinity of the shelling. Instead, rockets were launched on innocent people in a premeditated act of terror. We call on the UN Secretariat and the agencies to condemn these heinous crimes against civilians and civilian infrastructure, carried out by the Kiev regime in violation of the international humanitarian law. In a bid to profit as much as possible of the conflict, they are completely unbothered by the fact that their weapons mercilessly and deliberately hit civilian targets. The proxy war till the last Ukrainian is a lucrative business project for them. Tremendous money is spent on weapons for Ukraine. Billions of US dollars are migrating from the pockets of taxpayers to the accounts of Western military industries. The majority of EU members obediently follow Washington's orders to supply more and more arms to Kyiv, depleting their arsenals and replenishing them with products purchased from the US defense industry.
I'd be happy to. He has anything to say.
Mr. President, would you go as far as to say that Alexei Navalny's blood is on the hands of House Republicans right now?
I wouldn't use that term. They're making a big mistake not responding. Look, the way they're walking away from the threat of Russia, the way they're walking away from NATO, the way they're walking away from meeting our obligations is just shocking. I've been for a while. I've never seen anything like this.
How do you think that will make any difference in nudging House Republicans to take up Ukraine aid? They're on vacation right now.
I hope so, but I'm not sure anything's going to change.
Are you going to impose additional sanctions on Russia over Navalny's death?
We already have sanctions moving, and we're considering additional sanctions, yes.
Do you support sending long-range what's the path forward?
Thank you very much. Afternoon. Among my NATO partners, our discussions are that no one knows how to fight the Russians better than the Ukrainians because they've been doing it for 2 years. They have been ingenious. The ingenuity of Ukrainian fighters and their industries utilizing unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, in taking that fight to Ukraine and defending their sovereign territory has been nothing short of extraordinary. And so working very closely to them, I'm very pleased today to be standing next to this device and to advise you that Canada is investing over $95 million to provide Ukraine with more than 800 Skyranger R-70 drones. My friends, Canada will continue to back Ukraine in its heroic fight for freedom. We will not lose sight of the fact that this fight is crucial to upholding the international rules that keep us all safe. Ukrainians have inspired the world. They've inspired Canadians across the country. They have united the world in NATO. They have reminded us of the importance of investing in defense, that production is deterrence, and that the only response to a tyrant like Vladimir Putin is strength and resilience and a united purpose. He has united the world against that challenge.
Happy to take one question, one follow-up. Donc, nous commençons.
I spoke with Zelensky this afternoon to let him know that I was confident we're going to get that money to keep that country from being overrun by Russia. You know, there's so much at stake. I watched the television the other night, and one of the other Republican candidates saying, I've never explained to the American people why NATO is so important. NATO is critical to our survival. NATO is held, we have never been able to avoid a European conflict. As long as there's NATO, we have allies that are competent and have defended us. And by the way, the only time Article 5 has been invoked is when we were attacked on 9/11. So the idea that we're going to walk away from Ukraine, the idea that we're going to let NATO begin to split is totally against the interests of the United States of America, and it is against our word we've given since all the way back to Eisenhower. So it's about time we make sure that Congress come home and pass the legislation funding NATO. It's critical. Our security depends on it.
How confident are you that there isn't another city that falls right after this, that Congress acts on?
I'm not. No one can be. Look, the Ukrainian people have fought so bravely and heroically. They put so much on the line. And the idea that now, when they're running out of ammunition, we walk away, I find it absurd. I find it unethical. I find it just contrary to everything we are as a country. So I'm going to fight till we get them the ammunition they need and the capacity they need to defend themselves. Thank you very much.
Have you heard anything else about what led to Navalny's death, sir?
I haven't. I've heard several things I haven't had it confirmed. But the fact of the matter is, Putin is responsible. Whether he ordered it or not, he is responsible for the circumstance to put that man in. And he is a reflection of who he is. And it just cannot be tolerated. I said there would be a price to pay. He is paying a price already. Since 2000, when I made that statement, the Russians have had sanctions imposed on them and a whole range of other impacts. But look, the idea that after 70 years we have a NATO alliance that has kept the peace basically in Europe and kept us out of the idea that transatlantic alliance is not overwhelmingly in our interest is bizarre. It can only be, I don't understand. I don't understand either the complete lack of knowledge of history or the lack of responsibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Business. Come back.
pastor, as he was giving the sermon, he said, when I was raised in my Ukrainian household. It's interesting.
It's a small world.
It is a small world.